National Hot Dog Day, National Sunglasses Day, National Witch Hazel Day. Why is that a thing? Where did this whole thing come from? Who picks these days? Explain it to me.
Take it easy. I've got all the answers. Welcome to By the Way Today Is. Kate, you look like you're having a good time over there. What are you doing today?
I'm actually just sitting here reminiscing about how my mom had this crazy button collection when I was a kid. And I would sit there and sort them for hours. What a waste of freaking time. What was I doing that for? Hours. For years.
You were just preparing for today because it's November 16th and it is National Button Day.
Yeah, they wear a lot of cool buttons.
It's one of the ways you can celebrate it.
They come in handy today.
They do.
I wonder if she still has it.
I'm going to start you off with a question.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first button-down shirt registered? What year?
Okay, it was 1782.
Off by 100 years. 1871.
Good.
One of these days you're going to hit. It was by Brown, Davies and Company out of London. So up to that time, people had to slosh around pulling a shirt over their head every time they wanted to put one on and off. But after they came out with it, so much easier to put a shirt on.
I guess.
You don't have to pull it over your head. You can look ahead for enemies. You don't have to have your head covered with a shirt anymore.
Are you often putting shirts on while you're walking, not looking out for your enemies?
Back in the 1870s, that is what they did.
I got to get going. I don't have time to stop and put the shirt on. I got to walk and put the shirt on. Oh my word. I hope I don't run into any enemies. This is so scary for the 10 seconds that I'm doing this.
Life expectancy went up when the button shirt came out.
Wow, that's incredible.
I don't know. Seems logical.
It does.
1930s, button shirts started to become popular, and they've been popular ever since. And I'm going to give you another question. This is our by the way fact. What year does the earliest button go back to? They used buttons differently back then. They weren't buttons for clothing.
I'm going to say the 1600s.
2000 BCE.
We're
off by a lot that time.
Way off all the time.
2000 BCE in the Indus Valley civilization. And at that point, they were ornamental and they established a person's wealth and high status in society. So if you had a button pinned on you or however they put it on, you were a wealthy and well-to-do person.
Wow, so fancy.
Look at my button. We can go back to medieval Europe. Buttonholes were invented in the 13th century to help people keep their clothing together.
That's a good reason to have a button.
Up to that point, they would either lace them together or clasps were used.
Or they were just falling apart all the time.
They were just falling off.
Got to do something about this.
So the buttons became the hot go-to item for clothing back then. But in some places, because it was so hot, they had to have laws passed restricting the use of buttons and putting limits on them.
So they were all of a sudden like, you have too many buttons. So it would be like the bedazzler of their time.
Pretty much.
And people were like, this is too much.
It was way too much. They had to pass a sumptuary law, which was used to restrict the extravagance that they showed. They were too extravagant.
My word.
Back then, they called the buttons Devil's Snare.
I should have known to get back to the devil somehow.
So I guess crazy. I can't even process that. You have too many buttons on you. You're just too extravagant. You must be one with the devil. Kate's crying, laughing. While she's crying, I'm going to talk about the 14th century. Back then, people used buttons made of gold, silver, and ivory. And again, they still were an indication of wealth and rank in society. And at that point, they also were made of bone and wood, common buttons. But if you had a gold, silver, you were definitely high class. She's still thinking about that law. She can't even talk. It wasn't until the 20th century the buttons were used just for the sheer utility of them and not decorative or to show status. So it hasn't even been that long, just about a century that we've worn them for the use of them. They began to be mass-produced and were no longer specialty items made primarily of highly sought-after metals.
Oh, what a time to live in that you're fancy because you have a stinking button. Who do you think you are? Do you see all my buttons?
Gold, ivory. Not those lowly
What are yours
bones.
made out of? Bones? That's the devil's work.
That bone button is a devil snare. A lot of people, like your mom, collected buttons, and actually a lot of them have incredible value.
Oh, my word. Her button collection, it's amazing.
So we're going to get another question to you. How much do you think the highest valued button sold for?
Well, I know some of them are made of ivory, so I bet you those are like worth something. I'm going to say, did it sell at like an auction or something?
It did.
All right. I'm going to say that it was $5,000.
Way off again.
Wait, is it higher? Because I wanted to just blurt out $10,000.
Still higher than that.
Darn it.
It was a button that was created to celebrate the inauguration of George Washington. Way back. It's the first known artifact that refers to George Washington as the father of the country, and it sold for $225,000.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
That's an expensive button. Most expensive and valuable buttons that are just kind of common, if you want to call them common, they sell in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. So if you have any fancy buttons, you might want to get them priced because you might make some money on them today. So we'll talk about one other random button fact. Do you know why men's and women's shirts have buttons on opposite sides?
No, and I've always wondered because it's so weird.
Men's are on the right, women's are on the left. So are you ready to find out finally?
I'm ready.
So it can't be said with certainty, but there's a couple logical reasons that people throw out there, and they make sense to me, so I'm going to talk about them.
All right.
Most people are right-handed.
Uh-huh.
When a man would draw a weapon, sword, or gun, it was with their dominant hand. So they would draw with their right hand. Swords were always kept on the left, and so if buttons were on the right, it would prevent any sort of catching when they needed to chop someone's heads off really quick. So the buttons were more in. They wouldn't catch them on the sword and rip their shirt open before they stabbed someone.
Okay.
So that's one theory. Second theory, it used to be a common practice for women, especially wealthy ones, to have a maid, and that maid would dress them. And so going on the fact that most people are right-handed, and it would be easier for the maid to button it if they could do so with their dominant hand, which would require the buttons to be on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And then once shirts became mass-produced, because they were always on that left side for women's shirts, that's the way they stayed. But most women don't have people dressing them today, so it's kind of unnecessary.
Speak for yourself.
True. You've got someone to dress you, put your shoes on, open the door for you.
And I look at them with great disdain while they're doing it.
Then they all talk about you and what a devil's snare you are.
Yeah. But check out these buttons.
So how are we going to celebrate National Button Day today?
Steal somebody's button collection.
No.
Oh.
We're not going to jail. First thing you can do, join the National Button Society. For $35 a year, you get newsletters.
Oh my God, so worth it.
And the right to go to a button convention.
Button collection, you say?
Convention. Did I say
collection? Convection. Collection. This is a tongue twister.
Harkening back. So you can go to nationalbuttonsociety.org if you want to join for $35 a year. Or if you don't want to spend any money, you can just wear a shirt with buttons. Your pants have buttons. You can wear a pair of pants. Just highlight buttons today. If you really want to go crazy, go to a thrift store and buy a shirt with the coolest buttons you can find. Wear that shirt. So have fun with the day. Buttons are kind of boring. Make it fun. That's our episode for today on how to celebrate National Button Day. Come back tomorrow and we'll have a new day to celebrate. Talk to you then.
Remember to subscribe, rate, and review our show. You can download new episodes daily to hear what day we are all celebrating and how we can celebrate it. And be sure to share your favorite episode with your favorite person so you guys can celebrate together.